Hey, this is Steve from Sparky's Garage. Today we're going to be jumping on the rear of my E36. We're going to do the same thing that we just did on the front end, but now on the rear. We're going to upgrade those brakes, change out the brake pads, and put those Fortunato coilovers on. So let's jump into it. So here is the rear suspension, basically all factory style. So I'll probably go ahead and start with the caliper, getting it loose and off the rotor. Then I'll probably take off the rotor, and then we'll go ahead and remove the shock. And then I think from that being all loose, I should be able to get this coil spring out. Yeah, and then again, we're going to upgrade this to wheel studs instead of the wheel bolts. So wheel stud conversion I'm going to do to it. The slotted cross-trail rotors. The more aggressive pads, put the what's it called, Fortunato coilover in it, and then the adjustable coil spring that comes in that kit. And then the other thing we're going to go ahead and try to do is up here, we're going to change this to a mono ball. Yeah, so that should be fun. And then I'm basically also going to look underneath it and see how all the bushings are, the subframe, and check all that kind of stuff out. Alright, so this is where we're at right now. Went ahead and put some zip ties just to hold this caliper in place. So next what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the 3 bolts that hold the trailing arm in place. Put a jack underneath there and then slowly let it down. That should give me room to get the coil spring out that I need to. And then this car, when I got it, came with some upgraded stuff. So this is a Dinan Mono Ball for the trailing arm. And then also it came with some reinforcement plates for the strut up there, and those are going to go on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and put these 2 upgraded parts that came with the car on, and then also we have our wheel stud kit that we did to the front that you saw. We're going to go ahead and clean this all up, degrease all this stuff, and then install those also. So rear coil spring is out. Basically busted the trailing arm loose from the body and dropped it down. One thing you have to do is there is these little 10mm bolts. This holds on the brake bracket, the hose, onto the trailing arm. You need to undo those 2 10mm bolts. Then you can go ahead and take an 18mm socket, and they're going to basically break loose all these bolts and remove them. And then we're still going to have to remove this nut here to get the cage off. And then I'm going to basically cut and chisel and try to punch this bushing out of the trailing arm. I'm going to try to do it in the car so I don't have to take this all off and get it pressed in, pressed out kind of deal. But yeah, wish me luck. So doing a quick inspection of this stock bushing, look at this thing. It is cracked all the way around. So this thing is just completely walking around. So this ass end of this car, if I were to try to slide it, it would be so freaking all over the place. That is crazy. The thing is so rotted out. Let me see if I can move the camera real quick to show you a better view. Look at that thing. Insane. Completely just about to blow out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hole saw and I'm going to go right over it and basically get that metal piece out. And once that metal piece is out, then basically I'm gonna cut all the way to the edge of that the casing, and then basically take a chisel and a hammer and basically fold it in, and then hopefully push it out. So wish me luck. I'm making a mess. So I took my hole saw, went as far as I can go, basically melted it, turned to liquid. So that kind of didn't work. So then I took a drill and basically started drilling holes all the way around it. And then now I just broke my screwdriver, the tip of it. So now the screwdriver's junk, but I'm trying to get this bushing out, and it's almost coming out, or at least the middle insert. So we got the insert out. You can see it right here. That's out. Now I'm going to take a little oscillator cutter, and I'm going to cut this all the way to the metal flange, and then I'm going to try to fold it in, and then we can get it out. So we'll see. So again, this is the poor man way of getting it out, but if you just cut it and take a chisel, it will come out. Now, I did mangle this thing, but that's how you get it out. And there is no nicks, no scratches inside of here. But what I'm gonna go ahead and do, since this has got surface rust on it, so we're gonna go ahead and spray some brake clean in there, and then take some emery cloth, and then we'll go ahead and get it all prepped and clean for the new monoball style instead of rubber bushing. So we Scotch-Brite the heck out of this thing and then wiped it with some brake clean because it says it needs to be completely dried. So we got the Dinan Mono Ball out. It says to go ahead and put some compound basically all over this surface. We're gonna slide it in. Once it's in, then you're gonna go ahead and put on the retainer ring on the back side, and then put the screws in, and then you gotta tighten those down to 60 inch-pounds. And then the final step is to go ahead and put the sleeve in the center of the mono ball. So let me get this in, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. Check that out. So rad. And this is the sleeve that just slides in there. Sorry it's so dark. My light died, but look at that. So those are all torqued down to 60 inch-pounds, red Loctite on the bolts, and yeah, we're good to go now. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the cage back on, stick that bolt through, tighten it down to the factory specs with that bolt, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it back up on the body, and then also tighten those down to factory specs. Again, I use a piece of 2x4 just to push down on this control arm for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. So after I got that trailing arm bushing done, or I should say the mono ball, I went ahead and kind of jumped to it already. I put the studs on. Basically kind of how I did the front. I put some red Loctite on them, screw in the studs. So I'm gonna go ahead and put our rotor on, and then put the little set screw, and then we should be pretty good. So give me a second here. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Something about new rotors just looks so good. And then after this, we're gonna go ahead and blow apart that caliper and put some new pads in it. So good. new brakes are all done. New pads are in. The new little retainer clip. The new sensors in. Got the guide pins all cleaned and lubed up. Obviously you saw the wheel stud is on and the rotor is on. Looking good. Next we're gonna go ahead and put the shock on and then the coil spring. Now this is a divorce setup from Fortune Auto. It's not a true coil-over, so the shock is separate from the coil spring on this particular car. I kind of prefer it just because the divorce setup is factory engineered from BMW, and also it helps dissipate the load and kind of spreads the load out. If you have a full strut, or excuse me, a full coil over here, you're putting all the load up there and down below on just that bolt. So that's a lot of weight on those two things, where a divorce, it's going to help spread it all out. That's just my opinion, but hey, whatever. So anyways, I'm going to get that shock in. So here is the new shock. So we got our shock in place. Basically just put it on the bottom down below. You don't want to connect it up there yet. And then here is the spring pocket. So here is the other one from the other side. So basically this is how it goes together. I basically slide it down, and then on the back side you're gonna put the big flat washer and the nut on, and basically that is gonna tighten it down onto the control arm. Now the collar is gonna be your ride height, so you're gonna have to just kind of play with this. So basically what I did is I got it flush with the bottom, where you see that 5mm hex key logo right there, and I basically want 5 turns up just to start for ride height. So then next what you're gonna do is go ahead and put your spring in, and see I'm gonna have to drop it back down, but then once I drop it back down, you're gonna jack it up to where the spring has just got a little bit of tension on it, and then you're gonna go ahead and take this body and you're gonna turn it to where it meets all the way up flush up there where you can put the nuts on it. So basically your shock is not compressed at all, but it's still holding the coil spring in place, and the coil spring doesn't have any movement. So let me get it all set up and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. So here is the spring in place. So you can see the spring is loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack it up so there's just enough tension on it and I can't move it. So see how this is just still way too loose? So I'm gonna go ahead and now the shock is starting to bottom out up the top. So I'm gonna take the body here, I'm gonna crank it down, and you can see it is pulling away from the tower. So again, I'm just spinning the body so I can get more of a gap. So now I'm gonna go ahead and keep jacking this up. And basically I got my jack underneath the bottom of the control arm. So I just gave it one little pump up. And let's see, that's still just a little too loose. And again, I'm almost bottoming it out. So I don't want to bottom it out yet. So I'll go ahead and turn this. I'm gonna go ahead and pump it up one more time. Okay. Now, see how I can not even move this coil spring? That's perfect. So basically when it's at full droop, the spring won't fall out. That's basically what you're trying to do. So again, I am got plenty of play up there. So now what I'm gonna do is actually go up now to where it's flush. And I can't turn this anymore. So that's about as far as I can go. So now we're gonna go ahead on the top side, put the what's it called, the support brace that I got with the car. It's a factory upgraded piece, and then we'll put the nuts on. Now this is the lock collar. You can go ahead and lock it down now, if you want. We're still probably gonna play with the ride height, so I'm gonna leave this alone. But now you can see at basically full droop that this thing will be rock solid, and then this will basically have barely any pressure on the shock, and you'll still have plenty of room for full travel. So there's what it looks like all tightened down, and then I got that basically shock support on top. It came with the car. I went ahead and added that on, so it looks nice and good. So you can see the jack out of the way at full droop. The spring, I can't even move it. So that is perfect setup. Now we're gonna go on to the driver's side and finish that one up. All right, that wraps up the rear suspension here on my E36 BMW. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, this is kind of my setup. Everybody else has their own way of doing stuff. So this is how I set up my car. Again, full droop. The shock is not gonna fall out of place. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode. See you guys.